For all you Beyond All Reason players and fans, be you beginners or experienced commanders, here is a short lesson from the battlefield. Never give up too early. Something I myself am guilty of doing. And here is an example match to go with that piece of wisdom. Beginner lobbies with a mix of casual and more serious players are the perfect battlefield to learn a lot about mechanics, but also the player community of Bar. So while in my previous videos, which are linked up here and down in the description, I showed you how to start a match, eco up and play as ground or air commanders, this time I am showing a match using the replay function to give you the full perspective along with commentary and explanations. I am one of the 16 players in this match, playing on the red side on the Supreme Isthmus map, which besides all that glitters is one of the most played ones, especially for beginner lobbies. I ended up with the air role and used a Cortex faction commander, which is the same in the opposing team, while their tech is a Legion commander and ours is another Cortex player, with both of our front players using the Armada faction against the two Legion commanders opposing them. The current meta of this map is focused on recycling all those rocks at the narrow front line of the map. This is why the pond player, so nicknamed because their starting location is at the pond, boosts front players with energy generating tidal plants, while front players focus on generating metal and producing ground units. It is an evolved meta few dare to defy on this map, and often good players who take up those front positions can end matches early. This is why I want you to focus your attention on the pink Armada commander in my red team. He is one of the main actors in this video, along with his fellow front Armada player. Together they take over the rocks at the middle, and the opposing Legion faction front players get almost no reclaim on these valuable resources. Now we can see that I was spending my resources on getting a bot lab up in order to get faster energy reclaim from trees around my starting position using reclaim bots. But that meant I was behind on resources invested into my aircraft, letting the enemy air player transport and cover the takeover of one of the islands. These are important for sea players as an extra income because of the metal spots located on these islands. My teammates were calling out the necessary play, but my build order didn't allow for a proper response. This is why I said not playing the developed meta creates a problem for your team on this map, especially if the opposing team follows the meta to the letter. My aircraft might have won the air skirmish, but the enemy commander successfully landed on the island. Now you can see that my teammates have reclaimed almost all of the front metal and set themselves up with nice starting tier 1 armies, as well as turrets, and the pink player going for maximum expansion and greed to take over even the enemy's part of the front line. You can see by the ranking of players inside the teams over on the bottom right that the front wasn't equally staffed with players of the same rank. The sea positions on this map are quite important, and both player pairs were giving their best holding ground, or should I say water, with skirmishes and base raids going on in both sections. A mismatch of ship types can be quite detrimental for a sea player, and this is why I am personally still learning to play sea even after hundreds of hours spent in Bar already. It is definitely not a beginner friendly position. Anyway, back on the front line, my teammates were pushing hard into enemy bases, with even commanders coming down in their own special mini-nuke explosions. Commander destroyed. This is what the opposing, the blue air player, was trying to prevent and help out with tier 1 bombers. It is these bombers which start to obliterate the front positions, and what naturally makes my front teammates so very annoyed with me. I failed to protect them, and that is clearly on me, with a disclaimer that covering front players who have such exposed front factories and positions which go well into the enemy's half of the map would be a challenge even for good air players, because the time it takes for those bombers to move into attack range is far shorter than the time it takes my fighters to come from their patrols over our friendly mainland bases. This of course continues to be a recurring theme, and if we zoom out we can see that my air force is substantially smaller. The reason for this becomes obvious if we go into the statistics screen for a moment and take a look at the amount of metal and energy produced by us, the two air players. The main blue player, who is the opposing team's air player, whose economy UI you're watching on the top this whole match, has produced in these first 11 minutes 8,000 metal and 163,000 energy, compared to my 246,000 energy and 13,000 metal. This economic advantage was however paid dearly by my teammates, because of which the enemy air player has an 800% damage efficiency compared to my 100%. You can see these statistics plainly in gameplay for both economy and combat potential. First, the economy difference is obvious, as at about 13 minutes into the match, the blue air player has 3 construction turrets, about 25 wind turbines, 15 energy converters, and is just finishing his 4th tier 2 metal extractor. While my red base has all 4 tier 2 metal extractors completed, the same 15 energy converters, about 10 more wind turbines, 4 more construction turrets, and the first half built fusion reactor. This is cause of 2 factors: me going with the reclaim bots and my opponent going for the expensive bomber planes. Now we come to the current difference in combat potential as the blue player goes on another bombing run, this time against one of my teammates on the C spot. Because I have far fewer fighters built, my air force loses this air battle without inflicting losses on the enemy bombers. This just further emboldens the blue air player to keep bombing my teammates, this time on the front. I do send as many fighters as I have right now, but because of my high investment into the economy, instead of the number of planes, they are unable to destroy all enemy bombers, which then go from one base to the next, bombing them into oblivion. Constructing all of these economy buildings in neat stacks just makes the job of enemy bombers easier. I am well aware at this point my fellow players are furious, and that is why one by one they start to quit the match. Starting with our top player, who had conquered so much of the front line for the past 15 minutes. Only the intervention of a single anti-air flak vehicle from a red backline player saves the rest of the bases from getting bombed. The end result of this bombing raid is that 3 players in my blue team quit the match in succession, and the pawn player now gets to control the tech base, pawn base, and both front bases. What you can obviously notice is that the enemy team doesn't take the advantage of the situation and doesn't push the front. In part, this is because their front players never managed to develop strong economies or strong armies, and backline players were just trying to stop my team from pushing in any further into their side of the map. My team was still holding both C spots, and we had strong tier 2 units at the front now, managed by a single commander. But this is where the battle and the story take another turn. If we once again take a look and compare the red and blue air players' bases, you can see just how far ahead economically I am, as I start construction of an advanced fusion reactor while the opposing player still only has one regular and has invested his resources far differently. The statistics screen also shows this, as 44,000 metal and 1.4 million energy is not anymore comparable with 30,000 metal and 600,000 energy. This isn't any longer just an eco advantage, but a production advantage, and on the map itself you can see far more red planes flying than blue ones. The same is visible at the front, where the pawn player switches to defensive mode and is building up considerable tier 1 and 2 defenses, preventing the blue team from attacking over land. The next major turning points are when our main C player takes his navy to obliterate one of the enemy's front player's bases, and when he annihilates the enemy C base and their commander in one attack. Next such event is when the other friendly C player asks my help to use torpedo bombers versus his C opponent's tier 2 navy. This torpedo action versus the enemy green C player goes without opposition from the blue air player for a long time, and it lets me sink most of his navy. And even when the blue player sends his air force to try and defend them, they are met with overwhelming fighter cover. This engagement spills over to the Green Sea player's base eventually, and with the Blue Air player's economy being inadequate to prevent me from bombing their teammate's naval base, nothing much is left of it after just a minute or two. Pleas for help from his fellow players can't be answered as he can't outproduce me in fighter numbers anymore. This means both sea positions were lost for the blue team, their air player without planes and their front players without one base, and the second one already under attack. I do finally build some bombers, but only the less expensive tier 1 types to test out enemy defenses and probe for a way into their bases. The first such try is unsuccessful, while the second one produces minimal results. My third such attack uses the chaos of an epic grunts attack into enemy bases, while fellow sea players bombard enemies from long range. This bombing run gets to the enemy's tech player's base and destroys most of his build power and energy converters. My future attacks with tier 2 gunships are only the last straw, and the enemy team soon surrenders. This goes to show you that matches in Beyond All Reason are far more complicated than they might seem, and with 16 players on gigantic maps, there is always a lot going on. Quitting because of one setback or you losing confidence in a team member isn't the solution you might think it is. Maybe you missed out on an eventual victory. I hope you enjoyed this video and will come back for more in the future. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all happy gaming.